Hi everyone, welcome to another video. I am Sahagun, the discussant for the topic of misplaced and dangling modifier. So at the end of my discussion, I hope you will be able to define and explain modifier, identify the modifier in the sentence, and recognize and fix the misplaced and dangling modifier. So for you to easily understand my topic, let me define what is a misplaced, a dangling, and a modifier. So for the misplaced, it refers to something is in the wrong place. So in the grammar, the subject or the doer is on the wrong place. And the dangling, it occurs in a sentence without having a normally expected syntactic relation to the rest of the sentence. So for the dangling, it is the thought in the sentence that does not have any relation to the rest of the sentence. And the last is the modifier. It is a word such as an adjective or adverb or phrase that describes another word or group of words. A modifier could be a word, a phrase, or clauses that we use to describe or to clarify and give more details to another part of the sentence. So the adjectives and adverbs are both modifiers that should appear right next to the word they describe. I will explain further these three words later on the following slides. So these are the example of modifiers. The bold and the italic words are the modifiers. So as what I have said, a modifier could be a word, a phrases, or a clauses. For the first example is the words, the beautiful old house. So the beautiful and old are both adjectives that modifies the house. For the second is the house across the street. Across the street is a prepositional phrase that modifies the noun house. And the last is the house that they bought last year. That they bought last year is a relative clause that also functions as an adjective here that modifies the house. So, what is a misplaced modifier? A misplaced modifier is a modifier that is positioned too far away from the word, phrase, or clauses it is intended to modify, and as a result appears to be modifying something else. So a misplaced modifier occurs when a modifier is placed in the wrong part of the sentence that confuse, could make the sentence ridiculous, and could accidentally change the meaning of the sentence. So I have an example for you to understand a misplaced modifier. So please take note that the color red words are the modifier. She wore a lovely yellow sun hat on her head, which was clearly much too big. So for this sentence, it is misleading. The modifier is which was clearly much too big. If we are going to imagine the sentence, it means that the head is much too big than the hat. Just a reminder that if we are going to fix a misplaced modifier, you must remember that a modifier should appear right next to the word they describe. So we have to fix that. Instead, we would say, she wore a lovely yellow sun hat, which was clearly much too big. I placed the modifier right next to the sun hat because which was clearly much too big modifies the word sun hat, and I removed on her head because where else do we wear hat? So for the next example, I handed a fresh piece of bread to the guy beside me that was well buttered. That was well buttered is the modifier that modifies the guy, which is very wrong. This sentence gives us a question. Is the guy has buttered on his body? So if the writer really intend that it is the bread that was well buttered, we have to write like this instead. I handed a fresh piece of bread that was well buttered to the guy beside me. We have to move the modifier right beside to the word bread, because that was well buttered modifies the word bread. So if you have a question on a misplaced modifier, feel free to drop your questions on the comment section. For the next topic, we have a dangling modifier. It is a word or words it is supposed to describe are not in the sentence. Truthfully, we occasionally made a mistake. So for the misplaced modifier, the modifier is too far away from the thing it's supposed to modify, while a dangling modifier intended subject is missing from the sentence. But before we proceed to the example, let's talk about on how could we identify a dangling modifier. First is the dangling modifier typically occur at the beginning of the sentence. The second is there is no subject doing the action in the sentence. So let's see if it's present on our example. The first example is after returning from the dead, my sister took the plants outside. This sentence is like a horror story, so it's like a misleading. It depicts that the sister resurrects from the dead, which is very wrong. Our modifier is after returning from the dead, but who returned from the dead? There is a missing part of this phrase. You may need to change or rewrite the sentence to clarify who's completing the action. To fix a dangling modifier, you often have to add more words to the sentence. So going back to the example, the best way to write this is after the plants returned from the dead, my sister took them outside. So both of the clauses have now a doer of the action. The first doer is the plants, and the second is the sister. So for the next example, after graduating from Davao City National High School, his studies were continued in Rizal Memorial Colleges. On what phrase missed a doer? It is the after graduating from Davao City National High School, but who graduate in DCNHS? So to correct this sentence, we have to put a subject or the doer in the first phrase. We have to say, after Mark graduated from Davao City National High School, his studies were continued in Rizal Memorial Colleges. Since it used the pronoun his on the second phrase, basically a boy, we use the name Mark. So, have you learned something? Comment below if it is green lights or red lights and give us your thoughts. Adios everyone. Thank you for listening. God bless.